Well, Amy, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started. I really appreciate you being here today, and I'm excited to share this content with the folks that are jumped online with us today, or those that are going to watch on the recording later. You and I, cheating. I got to see this last week as we kind of went through this and really fine tune the delivery. But I think it's really pertinent content today. So let me introduce who our speakers are. First of all, my name is Matt Simons. I'm the VP of Business Development with Oasis Solutions. And I am just our host today. Amy is our star of the show. And Oasis is bringing you this content in our continuing executive series. And this is our HR version. And so we brought in an HR expert, and it's Miss Amy Ledke from Integrity HR. And she's going to lead our discussion today and talk about kind of some of the trying times that we're in, and how this information translates from when the presentation was originally put together to where we are today. Amy, the floor is yours.
Great, Matt. Thank you so much. It's just great to be here. And, right now, we got started in March with COVID, and we've had all kinds of challenge and change happening. So I'm really excited to be part of this session today. My company is Integrity HR. We provide great HR solutions. We outsource the human resource function to make it more efficient for businesses that value those kinds of relationships. So we provide great HR to our clients. And we've had the benefit of working with Oasis as one of our clients and many others here locally and nationally. So thanks, Matt, for letting me introduce myself. And I did found the company back in 2007. So been around about 13 years, and we have a wonderful team ready to help. Some of you, maybe if you're HR people, need a little extra support, or if you're a CFO or a business owner, this might be just for you. So we'd love to talk with you if you're interested in learning more about some of the topics we're going to talk about today. So, when you think about managing and engaging and motivating employees right now, sustaining our culture, resetting it, figuring out what employees want, all these things on this slide are so important. And so many times people are working from home, someplace else. Some of you might be fortunate enough to have everybody in one location, but it seems like being flexible at this point in time is absolutely critical. So Matt and I are going to be talking a little bit about that during the course of this presentation to give you some insights around what you can do. So the first thing, we're going to be taking a look at is how we sustain our culture. And, Matt, I don't know about you, but when we've been working with our clients, it's been a lot like riding this wild stallion. You get started and holy smokes, you've got another change or turn. And next thing you know, you're getting bucked off that horse. It's just been a really challenging year. Would you say that's been the same with you and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think everybody has been experiencing those challenges, but the tough part is there's no, like you said, consistency or cohesion. It's kind of like, a couple steps forward and a step back, and every now and then a step to the left or right. I feel like I'm doing the electric slide sometimes. So, employees, leaders, we adapt sometimes better to change because we know change is inevitable. But man, our employees have really got to be feeling the brunt of this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where being a leader is so important, and we have to really keep our focus on the basics with our employees, right? So really kind of, we've got this big challenge as a leader. We have all these things that we have to do to kind of keep the business moving forward. And we've got to really manage ourselves because how we treat our people really matters, right? And one of the things we're going to be addressing here in just a minute is just the challenges that our people are facing. And it's probably not much different than what we're facing as leaders, right? It's just sometimes we're trying to get through the day. So looking at how we can focus on this high impact culture, and, sometimes we can unintentionally do things that create more anxiety than what we realize. So today, we're going to focus on ideas to help you improve that culture, and Matt's got some good ones, and I'm looking forward to sharing those here in just a moment. So I mentioned a moment ago about sometimes leaders can unintentionally create anxiety in the workplace. Matt, have you seen that happen with some of your clients, or have you experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see it right here. All I have to do is look at home. I mean, I just see my wife's working from home, a position she's never been in. I'm working from home. We have kids here on, NTI until the next couple of weeks. And you see this anxiety and stress set in, right here in the house. If I'm honest too, it's not really a decreased commitment or decreased job involvement that's intentional, but it just kind of happens. You just kind of, some days you just kind of like, it's not like you're in your routine and you're going to the office. You take a shower, you get your coffee, you go to Panera or whatever your thing is, right? And now it's just kind of it's a real drag. It really is.
Well, it is. And I want you to really understand why people are struggling. And it kind of has everything to do with this anxiety and stress continuum. When we think about just everything that we've kind of known as leaders and even employees has changed this year. So, we're not going to movies as much, maybe at all. We're not going to go to concerts. We're not going to ball games. Just so much has changed, and this whole level of isolation has created tremendous anxiety, which really formulates into stress. And, it kind of, when you take a look at the left side of the screen as compared to the right side of the screen, when you have more anxiety and stress, you really do struggle with people not being as committed to their jobs, getting burnout. The things that they knew were the same, the constants are all up in the air, right? So we see people, with absenteeism, you might have more substance abuse. Clearly, liquor sales in Kentucky are up.
Sure, day drinking is up for sure.
Oh, yikes, we got to watch out for that. But people are not making the best decisions because of this level of uncertainty and stress. So they could be forgetful, and then maybe they're just not taking time to be well. Wellness is a big issue right now, where it's not just mental wellness, but it's physical wellness. So just the
Yeah, the
whole.
gyms have been shut down, and your routine of if you're a gym person, that's where you do your exercise. It's been shut down. The fear of going outdoors. It's been rough.
It really has, and it definitely takes its toll on your customers. So I want to share something with you here about the customer environment that you might not be thinking about. This survey was done a few years ago before COVID, and when you think about high anxiety workplaces versus low anxiety workplaces, the customer experience is much greater when we as leaders can create less anxiety. So, regardless of what's happening with us or our employees, our customers still have a certain level of expectation of what they're going to get, right?
Hmm.
So, these numbers are still pretty substantial. I'd be willing to bet, if we can, take a look at this during COVID, we might see some interesting surprises. But trying to find ways where people can feel like they belong, they've got enough information to do their job, they're not afraid, you're going to see much higher levels of customer positive response than what you would if you don't do anything to acknowledge the anxiety that people are having.
Hmm.
So, what I think is interesting about that is when we have this information, what do we need to do as leaders? And Matt, I know we've got a little bit of a poll here.
Oh yeah, sure. I forgot I'll bring our first poll up here. So we want everybody to join in and just feel free to help us answer this question. What do you think is the best way that we can sustain culture in chaos? Option A, just push through, changes just keep coming. B, intentionally communicate more to all. C, focus on check-ins with employee base. Or D, only communicate to my direct reports. We'll see if we get some folks to pop in and answer that question. It's a very popular answer so far. Give you a few more seconds here to answer, and we'll share the results.
Awesome.
So, looks like Amy, the answers that we received, most people say intentionally communicate more to all is the most popular answer.
Wonderful. Well, that's great because, we really typically have to communicate to our employees 7 times for them to remember what we're saying in a normal year. So now, if you think about it, we've just got to continue to have the same message over and over and over again so people see that level of consistency. And right now, the rest of the world doesn't provide that. So we have a distinct advantage as leaders to be able to provide consistency with our employees. So yes, those of you who responded that way, I want you to be very mindful about how often and how frequent you're communicating. I actually had a story from one of my colleagues who said she was working with a client who had reported that his wife's company, she was becoming more isolated from the leaders. And the CEO actually said, I'm not going to talk to anybody in this organization except my direct reports. And I asked her, I said, gosh, what do you think about that? And she was really surprised that this person decided to choose their own isolation. Now, Matt, what do you think about that? You think that that could be a dangerous proposition?
Well, certainly. I mean, you look at whether it's whatever the position is, CEO or vice president or leader of the department. I think employees look to you for leadership, but they also, in these times, I think the biggest thing is people have anxiety over, am I going to have my job, right? Are we restructuring? Are we going out of business? How are we financially? I will say this, I can only speak from first person experience, and this is really difficult, but I started with Oasis Solutions the week the pandemic hit. So I'd been doing something similar, but came in to work with Annette and Aaron at Oasis the week the pandemic hit. And I had some initial anxiety. It's like, oh, wow, did I make the right decision here? And they have done a great job. Oasis had monthly in all employee meetings, sharing the numbers, reaffirming that we're okay, we're doing fine, and that we're a strong and healthy company. And that has done a lot to decrease my stress and let me do my job, even though it's different than I thought it would be when I came in. At least I know that we're safe and secure. Or, you know what, Amy, if we're not, I'd like to know that too. If we're trending in the wrong direction, that'd be good to know as well.
Right now is the time, I think, for leaders to be straight shooters. Hiding behind, those people who are just closest to me and not wanting to talk to anybody else is probably a dangerous spot to get in. And people are looking for those they can trust. So if your company's not doing well, at least saying, hey, things are not going the way we would like or the way we hope, but here's what we're doing about it. And here's why you're important and why you add value. I think the whole challenge right now is nobody really knows, are they getting the straight story about COVID and the vaccine and the political environment and, maybe some of the disruptions that are taking place, not only in our communities, but, around the world today. So, really looking at being a straight shooter and how we're communicating that information is absolutely important to people.
Probably never more important than today.
So that kind of leads to this first element of behavior, that your employees are really watching what you're doing. And, they probably watch what you're doing all the time anyway, but now more than ever, they're kind of looking to their leaders to give them hope and a direction. So being ethical in practices and fairness is really an issue that I think is easy for some of our employees to deviate from. Like maybe they have to make a sale, and so, well, I'm going to just bend some rules here to do this. And I've seen that happen a couple of times with vendors that we've dealt with over the past 6 months. And it's been very alarming to me that as leaders, we absolutely have to push our employees to say, hey, no cutting corners. We've got to continue with our best practices. Matt, have you had issues with that or experienced that or heard about that?
Well, I will tell you this. I have heard about that, and someone shared that with me, Amy Rudy from Impact Sales Solutions. We did our sales part of this executive sales series, and she did a thing called winning on the hill. And it's a cycling term, going downhill, everybody on a bicycle is the same speed, but when you're going uphill and things are difficult, those that stand in the seat and pedal harder will gain ground on their competition. And in that reference, right now is a great time to actually pick up market share, because if your competitors are struggling with supply, if they are doing things that are unethical, if they are not making calls, things like that, it's a great time for you to be fair and consistent in your work practices and to pick up market share right now. I mean, I think it is in any type of catastrophe, there's always opportunity, right?
Absolutely. And that's where kind of the second point comes in, is engaging your employees and asking them for feedback. You know, sometimes we forget about asking questions. I think that's probably one of the hardest things to do as a leader, is just to sit back, gather information, and engage people. And this is what people are wanting, is they're wanting to share their ideas. And in particular, getting them an opportunity to distribute some of the leadership responsibilities. And I know it sounds a little crazy right now with employee development, but creating some positive distractions during this time can really benefit your business. So I know, Matt, you were telling me that you took a class. What was that about that you took, and just really to kind of help you develop yourself during COVID?
Yeah, I took advantage of an offer that was right at the beginning of COVID and took an Excel masterclass so that you get better at Excel. Something I'd been wanting to do. I knew basics of Excel, but this thing, and I'm still only halfway through it, but it's it just takes you from soup to nuts, and it's a Microsoft certification on Excel. So you've got some of this downtime from time to time where people weren't, at least I think it's starting to turn around, but weren't engaging on the phone and things like that. Might as well improve your skills an hour or so a day.
Absolutely. And so I think as a leader, we can engage our employees by giving them development opportunities. People aren't taking the vacations or not taking time away because there's very few options other than getting into nature. And sometimes our national parks are getting a little overcrowded. So, think about those things that we can bring to people, whether it's through LinkedIn Learning or through other vehicles where you can actually help people increase their skill set to maybe be part of a distraction for them right now at the workplace.
Mm.
The other piece here is recognizing performance and achievement timely. So again, this is where our communication skills have to really get heightened, because people need to find ways to know that they're connecting with their business, they're connecting with performance, that they're valued. So more than ever, on that anxiety and stress scale, people really need to hear from you. So making sure you're doing some check-ins with your staff and recognizing that great performance is something that's going to help people stay connected.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So we got another poll here. What do we have
Yeah.
this time, Matt?
Let's see here. Yes, I think. Nope. Wrong one. Supposed to go to the next one. Now, here we go. Polling number 2. How many of you have short-term plans, 90 days or less? So how many of you with your business plans have a short-term plan, 90 days or less? So not a year-long plan, but something, let's just look at the next quarter. We'll see if we get a few answers in here. Got a couple of responses coming in. And we'll give this about another 10 seconds. 90-day plans, anyone? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. We've got a few responses here, and it's a resounding I do.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. It's so hard when you're thinking about an annual plan, and especially with this year being so challenging, having something that you can kind of keep your folks, really focused on is going to help you in communicating that message. So being optimistic about what the goals are, but realistic, is what people are looking for today. And so something that I think has been interesting about this is being cautious about making promises. So for example, let's say last year we always had merit increases or bonuses. We might need to shift our reward system a little bit because of this 2020 unusual year, right? We've just been hit in a lot of different directions. So you might need to take a look at what your 90-day plans are and take a look at, are there any things that my employees are going to be expecting that's going to change this year? And then add that to your plan so that you can get that out there to your folks pretty quickly.
Mm.
You know, there's probably a number of things that are changing, whether it's, your work from home programs, or, people are going to struggle a little bit with, the school situation with children. Some kids are going to be home, some are going to be going to school. It might change in the middle of things. So, you being flexible as an employer to implement some of those key items that your employees have needs for is going to be to your benefit.
Amy, I have to comment here. A company that I previously worked for was privately owned for 20 plus years, and it was bought by PE. And every year, the employees got a Christmas bonus, and it was really based on tenure and performance and things like that. But it was somewhere between a couple $100 and a couple $1,000. And many of the employees come to rely on that. And when the PE took over, they cut the Christmas bonus, but didn't want to tell people, didn't want to message it. And then finally, when we pushed them to the brink of, hey, we've got to tell people this, it was like, mid-December. And it's like, oh, hey, by the way, here's a Christmas ham, and you're not getting your bonus this year. And it was a Clark Griswold-esque reaction for many of them, because it was like, we really kind of depend on that. That's our Christmas money every year, and we would always give it out a week before Christmas. So that communication, if things are different this year, please communicate that to your employees. They can take it, but they need the notice.
Yep, absolutely. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that, there's things that we can do as leaders to keep that communication going. One of the things that I struggled with myself as a leader was having daily huddles. And I think now more than ever, whether it's a Zoom huddle or connecting with your people and encouraging leaders to talk more. I know with my sales staff, I talk with them every morning at 8:15 for 15 minutes just to talk about what's the game plan, what do they need help with, how can I support them? And then I also am connecting with some of my other team. And it's been challenging because we shifted into that mode, but it's really been beneficial because now I can help be engaged and I can incentivize good performance and, also talk about that customer experience, which is very much a reality, not only taking care of our employees, but our customers. I think, Matt, I had shared with you that one of our clients actually put together like this Wheel of Fortune. It's, one of those spinny wheels and has prizes on it. And so they were spinning that wheel at their all team meetings and celebrating successes that people had, birthdays, anniversaries, and even customer successes. And they had shared with me that they got a lot of engagement with their staff, and people definitely showed up to the meeting because they wanted an opportunity to spin that wheel. So I thought that was kind of a fun way to share and communicate and celebrate, whether it's, something like that, or texting, or just having those huddles to help people stay connected.
I think even depending on the nature of your business and how your year has been, celebrating things you wouldn't normally celebrate could be in order. Getting an appointment these days is not what it was 6 months ago, and if you don't do that publicly, at least, acknowledge to your employees if they're in the sales or type of role or business development role, hey, good job. Usually you wouldn't say that about, oh, you got an appointment, congratulations, that's your job, but nowadays it's to be somewhat celebrated because it's harder to do right now. So
selling during COVID is something that really creates its own challenges, and, thinking strategically, being disciplined, and really communicating those desired outcomes, I think is absolutely a key initiative right now. So, how we're thinking strategically, kind of looking forward, anticipating the needs. I was talking with a business leader just this last week about what were they doing to stay engaged with their employees, and they're actually initiating this culture-driven process to take their core values. And at the very beginning of every meeting, they're talking about one of their core values and how it works for them. And we've actually been working with an entrepreneur who has developed the same concept and put it into an app so that as they're having meetings, they're talking about their core values, what are some of the challenges people are facing with that, how they're getting those deployed. And I thought that was kind of a cool idea. And we're hoping that that is something that over time can really help leaders get their mission and their ideas out there.
Interesting.
So next here is two words I never thought we'd see together is chaos and employee engagement. It's like, oh my, chaos and employee engagement, how those two things go together? Well, chaos is kind of where we are right now. If we don't do anything and we just watch what's going on, there's a lot out there. But controlled chaos is something that we can manage as leaders, right? And it is a way that we can really look to our employees to help them stay connected. So if we are going into this last quarter of the year, my challenge to you is to think about how do we survive in this last quarter so that we can energize our employees. We probably have 12 to 24 months before this vaccine gets out. 12 to 24 months, right?
Yeah, I think people are wishing that it was over, but it being over and wishing it was over, I think, are two different things, unfortunately.
It is. So we have to really work hard to sustain that enthusiasm. I just got an email today that a conference I was really looking forward to attending in Florida in February was canceled. And I said, oh no, you're kidding. Can't we wear masks and do hand sanitizer and socially distance? They're like, no, we cancel. We'll have a web call. Well,
Wow.
so we're going to be working through that here. So how we're looking at that energizing is going to be significant, but there's benefit. So if we can sustain our energy level to connect with our people, then, we're going to be able to retain those folks longer, get better collaboration. Our customers are going to be happy because we have, consistent folks working with them. And we're going to see better bottom line results. Now, this is something that when employees and participate in engagement surveys and companies take that initiative, there's pretty significant productivity improvements here. And Gallup reports on this every year, that companies that have high levels of engagement have higher productivity and higher profits. So that's proven according to the Gallup data, which has been out there for quite a long time. But I think the trick with this, Matt, is that we have to really look at engagement activities. And this is what we see, employees who are engaged, they're your A players or B players, hopefully wanting to be A players. And they just think about job as an activity, they're more focused. So, we really want to take a look at the degree to which employees connect to their work. And that has everything to do with how we communicate, how regularly we communicate. One of my clients actually put together this meeting rhythm about how he expects meetings to be run. And he passed that out to his leaders. He actually shared it with us in one of our roundtables. And I thought it was remarkable that he had that forethought to say, I want to engage my people. So when we have meetings, this is what I expect. And this is what you can expect. So he's really working hard to plan out that communication so that as they meet, it's engaging and it's connecting with people.
Yeah.
Have you seen that happening with some of your clients, Matt?
Yeah, and I did want to, I have, to answer your question, but I did want to say, I look at these bullet points at the bottom, and I think about my last 10 or 15 years of career experience and where I've been highly successful is because I've been excited, enthusiastic about the job. The days go by, 8 to 5 is just so fast. You devote extra effort because you're actually involved, right? You care about what you're doing. You think about the job activity, you plan, and it's just innate because you enjoy what you're doing. You're highly focused, openly discuss your job with others, recruit people to come work with you, all that type of stuff, because you're highly engaged. You enjoy the people you work for. You don't feel micromanaged, but you also at the same time are engaged with, it's great.
Yeah, so I want to take you back a step in time here because, those of you who are on this call, you probably want to be a savvy leader, be more savvy, really evaluate your own skills. And I want you to remember that, before we can get people really connected and engaged, they really have to have a lot of their needs met. And it's not about pay. For you to have somebody who's really engaged, we got to go back to Psychology 101 and take a look at Maslow, right? Yeah, think about
Yeah,
that
the
triangle.
pyramid.
Exactly. And we've got to think about their needs. So, are they getting their safety and security and, is their compensation covering the needs that they have? Is their home safe, right? But when we think about moving up through the list, the physiological needs are things we can help our employees with, as well as safety. And you can do that at work, making sure that people can come to work, they feel safe, you've sanitized everything, making sure that those are two things that help them get to feeling connected. And that belonging is employee engagement. So if we think about the things that we can help control, those first three circles that you see on this screen are things that we as an employer can do to stay connected so that people build their own esteem and they can move into self-actualization, which is really getting to the point in their career where they want to be. But as an employer, we can have a huge impact on that for engagement if we understand that if employees are struggling to take care of their children, childcare probably is in that physiological need area, right? If somebody's childcare and school's all messed up, that's going to be tough for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So these are all things that, we just kind of got into a routine for a while, but now the rules are considerably different. So when you're looking to engage people, metrics are critical. So it could be, opinion surveys, how often you do those. Maybe it's pulse surveys. I've got a client of mine that has a cleaning company and he does pulse surveys with his employees who are out cleaning business offices and business environments to make sure they're safe. He wants to make sure his employees are feeling safe. Checking on engagement, assessing the right talent. One of the things that we've looked at before is making sure we're getting the right people in the right seats. So, are we hiring the right folks? Some people are hiring like crazy right now. Their businesses are booming.
Hmm.
We want to make sure that they're measuring twice and only hiring once, right? So assessments can help you with that. Sitting down, having focus group meetings with your employees, what's important to them. Maybe it's a weekly meeting, like you said, Matt, that you're having a basis or monthly, and then focusing on wellness. And, now like none other time is a great time to focus on wellness. So it's physical health, mental health, and, watching out for that COVID-19 that has crept up on so many of us during this
Yeah.
time we've been home.
Yeah, the COVID-19 pounds, I get it. I will say this though, I've been involved in organizations that have deployed these, and the employee opinion surveys a couple times a year are great. You get a lot of opinions back that you either affirming what you're doing or helping guide what you're going to plan for next year. Those engagement surveys, I love it. The employee meetings, I mean, you've got to communicate with the employees at least quarterly, if not monthly. And then the wellness, everybody, many people that are physically active at any rate now have some sort of, they have their phone that maybe counts steps, or they have a Fitbit or a watch of some sort. Encourage the 5,000 step club, the 10,000 step club, those type of things, and keep a chart and points and stars. It's almost like, you're dealing with your kids on the, that type of stuff. But employees, they like that, and then also if you have a wellness program associated with your insurance, you may decrease your rates as well. So, it's a win-win there.
Sure is, Matt. It's great examples.
All right, my turn again, right?
Another poll now, Matt.
All right, we're going to get this one right because I know how to do it now. There we go. So launch the poll, and it says, would you agree that now is the time to be asking basic questions about safety, security, self-care, and what do employees need to be more effective at work? Oh, yes or nah? Yeah,
Well, he was paying attention, Matt.
that's right. Yeah. We've got several answers coming in quickly on this one. is now the time to be asking basic questions about safety, security, self-care, and what employees need to be more effective at work. We're going to go ahead and jump this one off. We got several responses back there, and it's unanimous. Oh, yes, 100%.
Excellent. Thanks to those of you who participated. We've got to make sure we're checking in, and we've got 9 steps here that we're going to help guide you through this competitive edge, and really taking that time to talk to your people is important. So are we fostering a people culture? People still can go find jobs elsewhere. I know recruiters are calling, trying to find good people. So believing that your people are the greatest asset. And so if not, why is that? What's changed? But it's a good time to look inward. Wouldn't you agree, Matt?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the best time because, things are all, just think about it, we're all in our homes, we're in our job. Like you said, people aren't going to ball games, concerts, bars and clubs and, whatever, vacations. Now's the time to look inward.
Yeah, absolutely. And then really looking at developing people. I think about, we're working through the book Good to Great. I just love that book, and it's an oldie but a goodie, but it really does focus on getting the right people in the right seats. And, good HR helps take care of the business. So looking at your policies, maybe you need to update those so that they're more employee friendly. Maybe you need to look at development opportunities for your people. Maybe you need to ask people, hey, what can we do to make things better for you? What would you like to do to develop yourself? But our talent is our competitive advantage, particularly in service businesses, and it could clearly be your competitive advantage in the future, which really leads on to making sure we've got the right people in our leadership positions. Sometimes this is tough, while we're going through so much change, to make change in our leaders, but we have to make sure we're hiring the right people, making sure our interviewing skills are spot on, and we're using good tools to assess that talent so that we can realign quickly. I think the word's pivot, Matt,
Yeah,
right?
pivot. Time to pivot.
Yeah, we hear that a lot now, don't we?
Well, people are using this time to develop their employees. I feel, or I see that, but also it is the time to make those leadership decisions, in my opinion, because you first of all, you can lean on the very valid reasoning of restructuring, right? I mean, we're restructuring the business. This has opened our eyes to, it's not you, it's us, whatever, but it's time to lean up in some cases, or beef up in other cases, and put those right people in the right position. If you've got that person that's, like, well, that's just how Bob is, it's maybe time to address Bob, that's my opinion. I think it's a perfect timing for that.
Yeah, it is good because we will have that competitive advantage when we've got great folks. They also have to take a look at, who's our weak link here? We're only as strong as our weakest link. And,
Yep.
Can we really push people up to perform at higher levels, or do we need to look at coaching someone out? Those are tough decisions to make right now, in particular when you think that, someone's home environment has changed so much, but, you've got one person who might not be performing and it's affecting the rest of your business. It's so critical that we really look at that, and people are expecting us to do something about it, right?
Like it or not, society has changed, and the way we lead has to have changed. And that old school leadership, it's like old school coaches. You don't see the Woody Hayeses of the world, or the Bobby Knights of the world. They have all gone the way of the dodo bird. And it's the same thing in business, is that if you own the business and you want to be a jerk, that's your prerogative. But in general, it's gone the way of the dodo bird as well. And what I mean by that is, a story shared with me recently, a leader was let go at a company because this was an old school, not very tactful, just browbeat type of leader. And they realized during this time that it was bad for the culture. And so that company made a tough decision, let a 20-year employee go, because they couldn't adhere to, the new standards of leadership. That's just more about communication, right? More about listening, more about understanding. while also being firm. You can be firm, but you have to at least hear and listen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, looking at these issues now and taking action is pretty critical. We also have to look at kind of the management styles. There's always, I think it's interesting. I like the disc profile. You can kind of say, well, why is somebody having a hard time talking with this person? Well, clearly there's some styles that work really well together, and then there's others that people really have to work at, right? Just because people are people. And so if you haven't addressed ways to deal with conflict, you might look at using some tools and then train those people on how those tools can help them achieve higher performance. This can be again, another way that we can manage the generations, we can manage our diverse workforce, we can help people appreciate differences and hopefully come together because of a challenge, right?
Very well said. Yes.
Next, we need to take a look at our current and future employees. We look at our target customers. Most of us could probably say, this is a good customer for me. Well, can we also use science and technology to identify who our target employee is? So, looking now about getting laser focused on who's next. And some of our clients are using some assessments to take a look at their high performing employees and understand what's below the iceberg. What we see every day is that tip of the iceberg with our employees, right? It's the stuff that's above the water, but then we all know the iceberg is huge, right? But the majority of the iceberg is way under the water. So using some tools to help us do some internal benchmarking and understand what are those behaviors, what are the thinking styles, what are the cognitive requirements, as well as communication requirements that it's going to take to have great people, right? So really a great time for us to identify our A players and understand how we can bring more A players into our business. Again, developing people skills. Oh boy. This is probably one of those number one issues that I hear about a lot. Would you agree with that, Matt?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Tell me more.
Well, this one's interesting where we have to just be patient, that not everyone is just going to be born a great communicator or really understand how their behaviors impact others, right? So sometimes you're going to see this conflict. And I think as this time continues, where what our life used to be like and what our life is like now and what it's going to continue like for a while, we're going to see people that are going to respond differently. So some people are going to embrace the change and say, okay, well, I realize I'm going to have to get through this, and here's what I'm going to have to do to get through it. But then we're going to have other people who are going to say, I'm really sick of this. Like me, I want to go to that conference in Florida. When I got the email it was canceled, I was like, no, I want to go somewhere.
I need it.
Yeah. So how we can be patient with people who are at different points in their acceptance of this, but we can provide that level of consistency. And also, again, think about those development opportunities. What are we doing now? What can we do in the future? And then looking at that job fit, give people feedback on how are they doing, operating their job in this different environment. Some people's job may have stayed the same and still gives people confidence they can come into work and something is still the same, right? Some people's jobs have changed tremendously the past few months. So giving people that feedback about their job, their experience, what they're doing to be effective and praising generously are things that we're seeing and what we're hearing, particularly in some of the reports through Harvard Business Review and some of their most recent articles. Now, our number 9 item here in terms of best practices is understanding what your employees are experiencing. So how often do we just walk around and ask people, hey, how are you coping with these changes? How are you coping with things at home? Because I can guarantee you, Matt, and you can probably speak to this too, is, whether we're dealing with children or we're dealing with spouses, significant others, or we've got extended family, parents, grandparents, grandchildren, everybody's life is a lot different. It's very much changed right now. And so we have to really understand what people are experiencing so that we can be better listeners and really connect more with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think are some effective strategies around that? Have you seen some things that are going on within Oasis that have been particularly beneficial?
Yeah, I think continued making sure that you make one-on-one meetings a priority, or meeting with your employees, even if it's ad hoc, just like you said, just to talk. I mean, even if it's just a simple, you know, how are you coping with these changes? Things at home, and like you said, having those hard and fast rules that were fine for 2019 and before, may need to take a look at, even just maybe temporarily. If someone needs to leave for an hour because of their kids or something's different, it's not like it was a year ago, right? When routine was routine. Now it's different. And I think knowing that you work for a company that understands that is important to an employee. I'll give you an example, and this is kind of off point, but it relates to this. It says that, I read this one time and I thought this was totally ridiculous and ludicrous, but there's companies that give unlimited PTO. There's no PTO policy, right? And I thought, no way. Well, the studies show that after a couple of years of that, people take less PTO in unlimited PTO plans. Because if you get 3 weeks and it's kind of a use it or lose it thing, you take your 3 weeks, right? You take your 15 days and you do that. But if you have unlimited PTO, you take off whenever you want. People take a vacation here or there, but the studies show that they were taking less vacation on an unlimited PTO plan. That relates back to this, is that knowing that you have this great policy in place, then you just, it makes you feel secure in that. And so you actually react to it differently. Does that make sense? You don't take advantage of it. You really appreciate it and know you're working for a great employer. And then that leads to all those other behaviors that we talked about, where you're really engaged in your job.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Matt. So here's kind of a recap on our leadership traits, and that is getting back to that ethical business practice and fairness, thinking strategically and engaging daily if you can, and then looking for the development and performance recognition. And probably number 5, I think, has probably been hard for many of us, and that is to just really show compassion and empathy. Now, not everybody is going to be that compassionate leader, and yet I know some who are amazing at showing compassion and always thinking of others first. But right now, I think we've just got to adjust our policies. We've got to adjust our flexibility. There's things we're going to have to say, nope, I can't do that. I can't accept that. But then there may be other things with our employees that we're just going to have to give them a little bit of a break, because everything that we knew that was kind of normal has become very not normal.
Yeah. And, I listen to myself here, and I'm not saying that we as leaders need to just roll over and, change the game because we're going through a pandemic, but you just have to listen a little bit more and be somewhat more flexible without being run over, and I think that really helps employees feel secure and appreciated.
Yeah, and I think it really does translate into this area of fairness. When we take a look at a survey that was done before COVID about what do people really want at work, and they want fairness. What does that really mean? Well, that's, consistency and some level of reliability. And that's what we can do as leaders. If we're not naturally super empathetic or super compassionate, and maybe you are, and that's great. But if you can be fair and translate that into being consistent and reliable, people need that right now. They need to
Yeah.
know that, because everything else, the media and social media and everything else, is kind of pointing to a lot of question marks, right? A lot of people are kind of questioning where things stand today. So thinking about that fairness quotient can be interesting and a good move for us as business leaders. So here's kind of the new rules, folks, for operating and managing retention in a new economy. This is, communicating often, showing compassion for your people, stepping back, adapt, listen to employees, their questions, concerns, be honest. I tell you what, honesty makes such a big difference right now. And telling people what the real story is. People just really want to know, can you shoot it straight? Because I'm just not getting it from other sources. So letting people know what's going on. Ask for improvement. We're all not perfect in this challenging time. So let's ask for ideas. Our employees probably have some pretty good ones. I've gotten some good ones from my staff. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, no, I was in a role previously where we needed to cut a couple $100,000 out of our budget, and we were at a stalemate. We just didn't, it was tough to find it. And so we brought in a couple of focus groups of employees and said, hey, how can we cut cost? Just anything, $500, $1,000. When it was all said and done, we cut about $137,000 off their ideas, and then we came up with a couple other ideas and met this $200 gap that we had in our budget. But $137,000 came from the employees, and they were great ideas, just little things that we could do in-house, or, we don't have to print this and that, or, whatever it was $137,000 was great.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. So, things like that, boy, you just go back and you ask somebody and, you can create a better nutcracker, right, than what you may have had before. So that's pretty impressive. Looking at touches, how connected can you be? And, this disequilibrium, that's so hard to say, disequilibrium is going to continue. I'm expecting for a while now. So how do we manage through that? And I've got a message for each of you on how you deal with that here in just a moment. And then look at ways to recognize individual achievement, development, and let's generate more leaders. So I think the important thing here is that you think about you. We can't be great leaders unless we're taking care of ourselves. And one of my coaches that I work with, his name is Boaz, and he gave me a 30-day affirmation challenge. And what this is creating affirmations so that when you get up in the morning, you've got a routine to really get your head in the game as a leader. Right now our job as a leader is we've got to lead other people, we've got to encourage, ask questions, but how do we take care of ourselves? And if you'd like a copy of my 30-day affirmation challenge, shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you. Matt, I'll get you my copy. Do it for 30 days and let me know what you think. Here, I've got my sample here, and I'd be happy to share that with each of you. And I'd love to hear about your success in taking care of yourself. So there's more. Matt, there's more. We could talk all afternoon, and I know we are on a time constraint today, but let's just keep our corporate culture going and engage our workforce. We've given you some ideas today. Hopefully you'll share a couple takeaways with me in just a second. Let's reward the right behaviors. People are struggling right now, but knowing what they're doing that's going great, we need to let them know. Focus on our A players. We probably can work on our B players to help them make a choice to step up. And those C players, gosh, they can take a lot of time. So make sure you're encouraging your A players right now, because the C players can really take a lot of energy. Use your surveys, get people connected, treat people like family, maybe better than family. Right?
In some cases, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then practice good self-care, because it really does start with you. And I tell you what, it's been a challenge, I think, for most leaders. I know it's been a challenge for me, and just trying to move, pivot, be quick, and work through these things. It's been an interesting time, and we've got a lot ahead of us and a lot of exciting times to really challenge us and our leadership. So if you'd like a complimentary best practices assessment and culture assessment, let me know. I would love to come talk with you. We'll give you some benchmarks, help you with your business. And my goal is to reduce your stress. So I promise it'll be the best 30 minutes you spend working on your business, or I'll buy you lunch. So reach out, let me know. Okay.
And as we wrap up, I want everybody to know that there's going to be we're going to provide one takeaway in the chat. We want everybody to comment on your one takeaway from today. Also, Falana Callahan, who's Oasis's marketing director, is going to send a link out for the next session. We're going to be doing this again, this time, same bat channel, next Tuesday. If you have a colleague who'd like to attend next week's session, or you'd like a repeat performance, we'll have that link up. And then there'll be a survey that pops up as soon as we end the session here in just a moment.
Awesome. So put your takeaway in the chat. We want to make sure you got at least one thing out of today. But if you can't wait to talk, here's how you can reach out to me. Clearly, Matt's got my contact. And I want to thank Matt and Falana for putting together this great session to invite me to present. So thank you all for your partnership. And thanks to everyone on this session today. I appreciate you and your commitment to great leadership.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. And thanks everyone for joining us. We'll be back here next Tuesday delivering the same content, and we'd love to see some of your colleagues at that time. Everybody have a great day. Be safe.
Great. Thanks, everybody.